Hello and welcome to Lantern Lane Stories. Tonight's story is The Knights Who Became Krakow's Pigeons. The main square of Krakow is called Rynek Główny. It is one of the largest market squares in all of Europe. A long stone building called the Cloth Hall runs right through the center. Its pale arches glow warm in the afternoon sun. On one side, the twin towers of St. Mary's Church rise high into the blue sky. The taller tower wears a crown of golden stone spires at the very top, and on the wide cobblestones all around, there are pigeons, hundreds of them, gray and white and soft. Their feet go click, click, click on the old stones. If you visit Krakow and reach into your pocket for a bread crust, an old grandmother nearby might catch your eye. She will shake her head slowly. Do not feed them. She will say, you might ask, why not? She will smile as if she knows a very good secret, because she will say quietly, those are not ordinary birds, and then she will tell you the story. Long ago, before your grandmother's grandmother was born, Krakow was a royal city. Stone walls and watchtowers rose around it. Knights rode through the cobbled streets. The air smelled of horses and wood smoke and cold river wind. A duke named Henryk Probus ruled here. Duke Henryk was tall and proud. He wore a deep red cloak that swept the floor when he walked. He had sharp, clever eyes that missed nothing. He had 12 brave knights who rode with him everywhere. Their armor shone bright as mirrors in the morning light. Henryk had one wish above all others, to be crowned King of Poland. He dreamed of a golden crown on his head. He dreamed of all the lands of Poland united under one ruler. It was a great dream. But in those days, a duke who wanted to be crowned king had to travel far to Rome. He had to kneel before the Pope himself and bring very great gifts to the church, the kind that cost a mountain of gold. Duke Henryk paced his stone hall late at night. The fire had burned down to dark red coals. Cold wind pushed under the heavy door. I have brave men, he said to himself. I have a strong city, but I do not have enough gold. The candles threw long shadows on the walls. Outside, the square was dark and empty and quiet. He sat very still for a long time. He thought and thought. Then, one evening, a servant came to him with a whisper. There was a woman who lived in the oak forest outside the city walls. She knew old and secret things. She could do things no one else could explain. Henryk stood up from his chair. He called his 12 knights. He pulled on his riding gloves. They rode out together into the cold, dark night. The oak trees were old and thick. Their bare branches crossed overhead like the fingers of giant hands. The night smelled of damp earth and pine needles. Somewhere deep in the dark forest, an owl called once and then fell silent. The horses moved carefully along the narrow path. Then, through the trees, a firelight glowed orange. An old woman sat beside the fire. Her hair was white as birch bark. Her eyes were the color of gray river stones in winter. She did not look up when the horses stopped. I know why you have come, she said. Her voice was low and dry, like leaves scraping across cold stone. I need gold, said Duke Henryk, enough to reach Rome and win the blessing of the Pope. I can give you that, said the woman. But there is a price. Name it, said Henryk. The woman lifted her gray eyes and looked at the 12 knights standing in the firelight. Their faces were still. Their hands rested on their sword handles. Your men, she said, they must change their shape, only for a while. When you return from Rome wearing your crown, they will become themselves again, I promise it. The 12 knights stood very still. The fire crackled. A log fell and sent up a shower of orange sparks. Then a young knight named Marek stepped forward. He looked at his duke and then at the old woman. We serve the duke, said Marek, we agree. The other 11 knights nodded. The old woman stood slowly. She raised both arms wide. The air changed. It smelled sharp and strange, the way it smells just before lightning cracks a tree. A great rushing sound swept through the clearing. The fire blazed up bright and hot, and then 12 knights were gone. In their place, 12 white pigeons perched on the roots of the oak trees. Their soft feathers ruffled in the cold night air. Their eyes were small and round and golden. The woman pointed toward the distant lights of the city. Fly to St. Mary's Church, she said quietly. They know what to do. The 12 pigeons rose into the dark sky together. Their white wings beat steadily. They flew over the stone city walls, over the dark red rooftops, over the quiet market stalls far below. They landed on the tall tower of St. Mary's Church. The old gray stones were rough and cold under their small feet. The air smelled of frost above them. The golden spires glittered in the moonlight. The pigeons began to peck. Their beaks tapped at the mortar between the ancient stones. Tinny chips and crumbles broke free and tumbled away into the dark. And before each tiny piece could reach the cobblestones far below, it changed. It turned to gold. A single coin rang out on the square below, bright and clear. Then 2, then 10, then a whole rain of gold coins tumbling and spinning. And chiming up the gray stones, the sound was like small bells, chiming all at once. Servants ran out with leather sacks. They scooped the warm coins from the cold cobblestones, their hands trembling with wonder. Citizens leaned out from their windows with wide eyes. Duke Henryk stood in the middle of the square. Gold coins landed near his boots with a clean ringing sound. He looked up at his 12 brave knights, small white shapes against the black sky. Enough, he whispered. More than enough. He had the gold packed into heavy chests and strapped onto horses. He called for his warmest cloak and his fastest horse. I will be back before the first snow falls, he told his servants. He did not look up at the church tower again. He did not call out to the 12 pigeons watching him from the cold stone ledge. He rode south into the dark toward Rome. The Rome was warm and golden. The streets smelled of orange blossoms and fresh bread. Music floated from every open doorway. Duke Henryk was welcomed at every feast. He was generous and loud and funny. He gave away handfuls of gold to make new friends. He bought silk cloaks and fine leather boots. The gold lasted all winter. Then spring came and the gold was gone. Henryk wrote letters home. He promised, I will return very soon. He told himself one more week. He made plans, next month for certain, but the months came and went. One after another, back in Krakow on the cold ledge of St. Mary's Tower, 12 white pigeons waited. Every morning they looked down the long road that curved south through the green hills. The road where a red-cloaked duke had ridden away, spring moved through the square below. The market stalls opened. Children chased each other between the merchants' carts. The smell of warm bread drifted up to the tower. Summer came, the square was bright and loud with laughter. Then autumn, the trees around the city turned amber and rust. The air tasted of wood smoke again. Then winter, snow covered the square in deep white silence. The 12 pigeons huddled close together on the ledge, their feathers puffed against the cold. They waited through one winter, then two, then Duke Henryk Probus never came back to Krakow. Without his return, the old woman's spell could never be undone. The knights of Krakow remained as pigeons, not for a year or two, for century after century, but the people of Krakow did not forget what grandmothers told grandchildren. Those birds in the square were once brave men. They gave up their own shapes so their duke could chase his dream. They have waited a very long time, be kind to them always. And so the pigeons were never harmed, year after year. More came to the great square. The flock grew and grew. Today, thousands of pigeons fill Rynek Główny. When you walk through the square and clap your hands, they all rise into the air at once. They swirl upward in a great gray and silver cloud. Their wings make a sound like rushing water. They circle the twin towers of St. Mary's Church, the very place where they once made gold from stone. Then they settle back down quiet and calm on the old gray cobblestones. Old Krakovians will say, there are already so many, you do not need to feed them more, but never be unkind to a pigeon in this square, because once they say softly, those birds were brave. And so Krakow also slowly fell asleep. Good night.